Hello, everybody. I'm sure most of you have met me at this point today. But for those of you that didn't, my name is Ben Tanay. I'm a third-year PhD student here at the Engineering Education Department. And my first open house experience was being one of the prospective students in fall 2022. Attending the open house itself is the reason why I'm at Purdue now, being able to get a really clear window into what the community is like here, and really knowing, making intelligent estimation in terms of what I was getting myself into for the next few years. When I joined as a student in fall 23, I still wanted to play an active role in the open house because I wanted to contribute to the thing that brought me here. So, as Christine reminded me earlier today, I did a day in the life as a student presentation. I figured something a bit more in charge of the community might be better fit, and so that idea naturally evolved into what you see now here, the Q&A portion of the open house. So what I have here is an assemblage of multiple different people in our department, all ranging with experience, all ranging with background. I would like them to introduce themselves in a second, and then I have all of the questions that you prospective students submitted during your application process for this open house. So we'll be going through those, but I'd like to remind everybody that this is very much a conversation. If you have a dynamic question or you'd like to interject or just hop in, please do. Do not feel like you're not allowed to raise your hand. Do not feel like this is not a conversation going forward. So please engage, enjoy, have fun. So without further ado, we'll start with the closest panelist to me. Please state your name, how long you've been here at Purdue E&E, and generally what you do for research right now.
All right. So I'm Christine McDonald. I'm in my second year of PhD here in E&E. And my research centers around K-12 STEM integration. My advisor is Tamara Moore, and I'm in the epistemic lab right behind you. Rachel Higby. It's questionable what year I am. I transferred from another department, but I am a PhD candidate graduating in this coming May. And I am co-advised by Carrie Douglas and Tamara Moore, looking at how middle school science teachers incorporate environmental concepts into their classroom.
I am Matthew Oland. I am a professor. I have been here since 2006, so that's 18 years. But I had a career prior to that as a faculty member at Clemson University. So I've been doing this stuff for a long time.
Hello, I'm Tina Putz. I am the graduate coordinator, graduate manager here. I've been at Purdue 9 years, and I've been in the engineering education 2 years, but the entire 9 years has been in graduate education. And I can help you with policy and procedures and applications.
I'm kind of lower. I think I'm 3.5, 4 year PhD. It's not like Rachel. So I'm an assistant professor practice school of engineering technology. So I start my PhD with them, and then they're like, "Well, technically, you can't be faculty at PhD." So they shoot me away. So I joined engineering education. My first research is on the pathways for rural students into higher education, specific engineering. I'm a part of the Spear Lab with Dr. Joyce May. Also, my favorite chair as well.
Jennifer, Dr. DeBoer has class in Armstrong, so she's enrolled here. So
fantastic. So when Dr. DeBoer arrives, we'll have her do an intro, and she'll join us right where we are in the conversation. With that being said, let's actually start to get to the questions now, okay? Generally, these questions will be pitched openly to any of the panelists here. If you feel confident in answering, please jump forward. In cases where I feel like some questions are specifically targeted, I will call you out. If there's a bit of dead space, I would who should get the question. Cool. So, I think let's start with this first question for the general panel, specifically for Matt. What is the difference between a teaching assistantship, a research assistantship, a fellowship, and what other funding opportunities exist for potential students?
Okay. So research assistantship comes all of the assistantship-y things and the fellowship can come with tuition. So let's just take that off the table. Research assistantship, you would be expected to contribute to wherever research project that funding is coming from, to the extent of however many hours that assistantship is for. So the common numbers would be 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week. The extent to which you hit that exact number depends on the advisor and whether they're able to pay attention to you. And sometimes the hours may fluctuate a bit. But
now that number of hours may or may not overlap with the kind of time you're spending on your own research for your dissertation and so forth. It depends on how well your personal interests in your dissertation align with the project you have to be working. Then a teaching assistantship, obviously, there's less integration, less opportunity for integration. Your responsibilities would be to supporting whatever class you are a teaching assistant for, in whatever way that works in that class. So teaching assistantships range from having actual responsibility in a teaching role, which is most commonly in like a lab or a recitation kind of situation, but can also just be grading in the background or managing a team of people who are grading, or whatever, right? So it varies on what it takes to help in that particular class scenario, conversation with the professor of record for that class. A fellowship, the general expectation is that you are funded from some source, which could be the Natural Science Foundation or another external body, or it could be a fellowship from the university, but it's to focus on your own specific work. And so, like, for example, at Purdue, there's one that kicks in if you're eligible for one, to apply for one in the last year of your work in order to focus on finishing. That said, typically, those fellowships are not fully funded, which is sad. So typically, people also have some kind of smaller side gig, but in general, they have a lot more time to focus specifically on their research project. Now, other sources around campus, there are all kinds of people who need help from people with your skill sets. So that would include the graduate school, people have worked for what used to be called the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging. I don't know what it's called right now. Okay, it's just not a thing. A minority program, women intern program. I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
I think those are both. I know that is yours.
Cool. All right. Well, so various administrative officers have needs, and you have certain skills that are useful to them. And so lots of our folks have found positions working for other places.
Well, absolutely perfect time in that case. We're going to move on to the next question, Ben. I'd just like to welcome Dr. Jennifer DeBoer also to the table. Hi, Dr. DeBoer, if you'd like to give a brief introduction in terms of who you are, what you do.
Sure. My name is Jennifer. I am just coming from class. We reviewed for our exam. The students are going to do great. I'm an associate professor in the school with a courtesy appointment in mechanical engineering. My research area, which is very related to the class that I just came from, is looking at how engineers and the individual learners in their communities come up with solutions for their own needs. And in particular, looking at marginalized students and communities and how they can be setting up the systems to make the most use of their kind of unique assets, skill sets around the world. So the class that I just came from is Engineering and Global Cultures. How does engineering get practiced and learned in the U.S.? And what does that look like around the world? What did it used to look like in the U.S.? What does it look like now? Because it has changed a lot. So that is me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, let's go back into the question regarding funding in that case. As Matt described, there's many different ways in which you can get your funding to fuel this PhD process. So a question for the students on the panel right now, what is your current funding source? And have you had different ones in the past?
Okay, I can start. So my funding source is Scale K-12. And so it is right now, government-funded project where we are developing curricular units and supporting teachers and training them to integrate those units into their classroom. And then the research along with that is the efficacy of the units and tools that we are creating.
Sure. And just to clarify, using the vocabulary that Matt provided with us, this is a research assistantship for 20 hours a week.
Is that right? I'm 15%. So research assistant for 20 hours a week, yes.
And your assistantship is underneath your advisor, Dr. Tamara Moore.
That is correct.
Excellent. Rachel?
I am also a research assistant at K-12. I'm 75% right now, which means I work 30 hours a week on my research assistantship. And I
have had quite the variety of funding sources on my path here. Probably the most fun one by far was that I got the NSF Grad Research Fellowship. So that provided 3 years of funding where I didn't have to work for anyone. Yay. I just got to work on my dissertation research and classes I needed to progress toward my degree. And so that was great fellowship funding. And now I'm back to being a research assistant.
Me? And so I'm, as a professor, they give us half off tuition, right? So I do 50% tuition, but then the rest, I started my master's, 10 years ago, 2015. I was a teaching assistant. I really enjoy being a teaching assistant because it's what taught me how to enjoy educating. I didn't think I would ever want to do that. I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to grad school. I need something, okay. But it really taught me how to enjoy being in a classroom. I enjoy especially being in a lab. I taught a casting lab, which was really fun, melting metal and pouring. It's one of my passions. But it taught me this is what I want to do. Now, then I was advised, wait 5 years and come back for my PhD, right? And in that time, initially I was going to have Stellantis, Chrysler, the Fiat Chrysler at the time pay for it. And I'm like, I'm thinking about leave. But my wife, she works for the university, so then I got tuition stuff through her, and now we're progressing that way. So, yeah, excellent.
All right. Does the audience have any questions generally about funding before we move on to another topic? Not everyone at once. Yeah, go for it.
The funding cuts, how have they been affecting engineering education, especially that I know parts of the engineering education around core is diversity and inclusion, all that. You can still say the word. No, I'm not. Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. I shouldn't.
It's probably.
I mean, I can start because I think I have. It's even beyond that. I think we're living in interesting times, and the intersection of a lot of our work, and certainly something I'm thinking about even all the time. A lot of my work, a lot of folks across the department think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice, even like across all of the products, even if they may sound focused on semiconductors and microcomputers, it's all part of it. So I think that has been something that has affected all of us regardless. Universities and the role of universities, that's also affected what role we play and how funding can be allocated and what we're supposed to be doing. That's under attack. And the role that I'm in international development, I was like, we're the canary in the coal mine, USA first on the chopping block. So it's changed a lot of things. Like, I think there's no denying that. Like the graduate research fellowship, you're only going to get like one go at it, only the first year after. So there are some like logistic things that are happening. At the same time, it's not, zero. I think that we're starting to see just in how the dynamic equilibrium has sort of like gotten to maybe one equilibrium point, maybe now. There's still a lot of uncertainty, but there's still funding for engineering education, understanding how the workforce can be trained to serve the national interest, and what that looks like. So some of the nomenclature might change. And the ways that we talk about what we do has changed. Aside from existing funding cuts, yes, constraints, yes, there is still funding and activity and support and really there.
Excellent, thank you. Let's move on to another topic of questions. In that case, I think the most pressing on a lot of people's minds here, their guests here, is admissions and preparation for so. So one of the questions that we had asked at least 4 or 5 different times for our sheet is generally, what does the engineering education admissions process look like? I think Rachel and Jennifer might be some of the best people to speak on this, considering their role in it, which I'll talk about. But would anybody like to chime in?
She's like nudging me, like, hey, I'm not on the graduate committee now. I was on since 2011.
There's no first. Acted for, and actually Ben and myself are on the grad committee, so we are the ones reviewing here on the page list. And like,
2 months ago.
So applications are due December 1st, is that right? Okay. So we go through every single application. Several people review it according to a rubric, and we're just looking for students that understand what research is, right? You understand what a PhD program entails. You're not coming here to just learn how to be a better teacher. You're actually researching some part of engineering education to learn more and contribute to that field of study. So we want to make sure that that's really clear in your application. That ideally you have a research interest already, that you have some sort of topic you're hoping to pursue. Is always good to see that you're not just like, I want to come here and do research, but having some sort of direction, idea that you want to go, idea of faculty that you might like to work with is helpful so that we can understand what direction you might want to go to. And I think quality of writing is a big one too. Like if I read an application, I'm like, there's a lot of grammatical errors, it just lets me, and I'm automatically going to read it longer. So, but I think in general, like I think research is really a key part. And that's a big piece of what we're looking for, is understanding what the program is and what direction you would like to go. But definitely,
but it's be sure it's a very holistic process. I mean, one of my primary roles on that graduate committee was invariably a new person would come on the committee, and at some point, someone would utter the phrase, I'm not sure this person will be successful because their GPA was, and I stop them and I say, before you say anything more, you should know that my undergraduate GPA was a 3.0. And they go, I'll shut up now. Like, why don't we look at these holistically? Yeah, that's a great idea. So there are lots of reasons why candidates look different to us. I mean, yes, the research question is important, right? But it's also great to see the ways in which you have engaged in activism in support of social justice, education, and so forth, which we've certainly had some candidates who were very strong in that area. And they were trying to pivot to take a research direction for that activism. And that spoke to us in that way. So yeah, so lots of ways, but the most important thing is it's a very holistic process.
And I can't add much to that, except like we will actually read the things that you write. So it's not a pro forma. So again, so like speaking to the rubrics are like, we are a department that does research on assessment and how to thoughtfully and holistically assess and align on, people who are going towards X, Y, or Z with, real goals. So for example, if you have particular faculty that you might have some interests aligned with, like make sure that you read up, not just on our web pages, because we're bad about updating those, but like, what are they doing? What have they published recently? What are they known for? And like, because they will be ones who will be called in to also read your application. So they will look at you as a, person represented by these multiple materials that you're putting in.
So this next question, I think, requires a bit of context and maybe a bit of correction from Shania if I say something incorrect. In the past, what we've done with first-year students that join the program is many of them will join what we call the Explorer program. And that means on your first semester, you are effectively shopping around to see which advisor would be the fit for you. They would come into one of your core courses and give a presentation about what it is they're researching. They would encourage you to have conversations with them to see, would this be a good fit on a personal level or a professional level? And by the end of that first semester, you are then making a more informed decision about who your advisors are going to be. The Explorers process, I believe, is something that the correct first-year students are currently going through, but the Explorers program is not going to be happening going forward. That means that upon admission into this program, you will have your advisor matched then and there. So the question that I was given is, what is the best way to reach out to E&E faculty to talk about their research? And the answer to this, I would implore all of you still interested in applying, have this conversation as a result of this as soon as possible before you submit your application, such that that conversation will inform how your application turns out. So do I need to repeat that question? That was a bit of a ramble there. Cool. All right, go for it.
I think you answered.
What is the best way to reach out to E&E?
The best way to do that.
Yes. So we could talk about mechanism for how do I reach out versus what kinds of questions as faculty do I appreciate being asked.
How is early and often, because I may lose your email and you need to email me like 4 more times. And it's not a personal thing, but with students and research collaborators and everything, like I greatly appreciate the follow-up. Along with that, it will help me, and it will also, I think I can speak for any of the faculty or staff, who are folks you would engage with, including our students, to show that there's a reason you're reaching out and that you've done your homework, so to speak. So if you reach out and your question is like, what do you research? I will not have time to give you like a useful answer. Then that will probably not happen. So if you have specific questions, if you've looked at like what I presented with my team at ASWE, which is our field conference of our Society for Engineering Education a couple months ago, we'll have a much more relevant conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that early contact, it includes, like, so I'm, she's not in the room, but I'm in contact with a student at University of Tennessee who's interested in the program here or someplace else. But not only does she have sort of a specific area of my interest that she wants to work in, but like her thoughts about that idea are well enough formed that we could start to have a conversation about me mentoring her to complete the application for the NSF postdoctoral or the NSF doctoral fellowship now, right? And so that helps her career in the sense that it's a credential. It also helps because it gives her time to focus on what she's interested in. It helps me and Purdue writ large because she would come with 3 years of funding already in the bag. There's no way that Purdue is going to tell me not to bring in someone who's got an NSF doctoral fellowship, right? And so, so there are all kinds of reasons, including the potential for engaging in a fellowship mentoring process before applying.
All right, we have one question left regarding the admissions process. I already have 2 answers already for this one. What can a prospective student do to prepare prior to starting an engineering education? The reason I have the question ready for this, or an answer ready for this, is because I asked this question 3 years ago to Shai specifically. And what she did in response is she said, first, buy this book and start reading it. The Craft of Research. It is a book that we use in one of our core courses that teaches you the fundamentals of how research is constructed, thought about, and presented. And I would recommend it's a good read. Very good book. What I complain. The other thing that Shai did was match me with a mentor. While that mentor is not in the room right now, that is actually a part of a more holistic mentorship program that we offer through ANEGSA. Rachel, would you be able to speak about what a mentor matching process is like?
Oh, sure. I run the mentorship matching process right now. So yes. So every first year student that comes into the program, so once you're admitted and you have agreed, yes, I'm going to come to Purdue for this PhD program, we will set you up with a mentor. So hopefully in the summer, around like June or July, we will match you with a current student. We do our best, if possible, to try to match you with someone with similar research interests or even similar hobbies. Sometimes if it's international students, we can find someone from the same country or region. But the goal of that is to help you as you're transitioning over that summer to Purdue. So everything from like, do you need help finding apartments? Do you want to know more about like the buses in town? What's the weather like? Like we can answer we've gotten all these questions. And then it also, once you get here, then we usually try to meet with you. Mentor and mentee will meet together to then answer questions as you're transitioning and starting the program. So figuring out things about classes or the advisor finding process, which might look a little different next year, but any questions you have as you're transitioning. And then over that first year, we try to meet with you periodically as well, just to check in. How are you doing? How's grad school going? You just want to sit and get coffee and breathe for a minute. Like, do you want to talk about this class that you really love? Or like, you're struggling, have questions about something. And so we have mentors set up to help you through from right before all the way through the end of that first year. And by the time that you're settled into a lab, then you'll probably have grad students in that lab who kind of take over that mentoring role from your grad mentor. But we're also still here to help. I was in the program for a couple of years and still saw my mentor every once in a while. So I was like, hey, we haven't talked. You want to get coffee? And so we'd go get coffee. But yeah, that's the goal. It's just to help you easily transition into the program.
The last time I saw my mentor, it was maybe 2 months ago, and he requested my help in wheeling the 20-foot teddy bear. And that
See it here with stuff out.
No, is it Youngstown State?
Wow.
Gosh,
I may see said, but Tyler and Christine, what was your mentoring experience like as you were newer students? What was that matching process like, and did it play out in a traditional way?
That's I didn't get one.
Oh,
But because I started off here, so I started in the spring. I started in 505 was my first class, in 505, which was a big class to jump off. And so then my cohort was in your guys' cohort that next year, right? So really, I waited basically a summer and fall, then join the doctoring club and get involved.
so we have started making sure spring admits have mentors. So I think I made up for that because I had 2 mentors, but also we were a small. But I did start. I can attest to that. I did start in the spring, and I got my mentors, plural, in the fall. That's really great. They both reached out often, and were very open to my questions, sharing their experiences. No question was off the table, and just very supportive of just the transition, which is not trivial. I came from many years in industry, and so stepping out of that and into a graduate research program was very different for me. But my mentors were real instrumental in helping me navigate that transition.
Well, ask the question because I have a similar case. I'm coming from an industry where I don't have much research experience. How would you convey that?
Yeah,
Without having the experience.
so that's a good question. Well, one strategy actually that Dr. Brizzer shared with me when I was coming through open house was really spend the time working on the essays and supporting the points that Dr. DeBoer shared in there, and that Rachel attested to, which is really begin understanding research, begin understanding what the faculty are researching, read their papers, cite their papers, really get your head in that space because it helps you think about what research is. So I did not have a focus necessarily area of research, except to say that I was excited that there was research going on in a space that I had played in industry, so I could make some connections with that. Well, I hadn't published research papers per se. I had done many things from other types of papers to presentations, just to show sort of that breadth of integration into community, and was just encouraged. I didn't have a 30-page CV. I had a 1-page resume. I was encouraged to blow that out into more things, and I did that. That took a hot minute because I had to go back and wait, when did I give that presentation? I had to Google myself. When did I give that presentation? Because I didn't have all the back dates. But it was a good exercise because it supported building my CV for the application. I had something, you revisit that in 501, and I had something that I could start on and continue building that for research. So I was really encouraged to reach out to different faculty, understand what they were teaching, and try to find a space in there where I could fit.
I think also to add on to that, even if you don't have research experience, there's a lot of skills that you gain working in industry that are going to be really helpful for a research career or a PhD. So having some of that leadership, time management, and ability to overcome failure in projects that don't go well, and overcoming that and still moving forward and learning from that. There's a lot that you have learned from industry that's going to be really, really helpful for your PhD. So highlighting some of those skills that you have and that you have them and you plan to use them is also a good thing to mention.
It's why after my master's, I knew I wanted to teach. I knew I would eventually become faculty. My grad, going down my reply tech said, go work 5 years first. Get the industry experience, get that thing, come back.
So that's good.
All right. Now we have a few questions related to individual specific practice of research in the department right now. This is not a question, more of a statement, mostly for the graduate students. I would love to learn more about how the current doctoral students in engineering education are integrating emerging technologies such as AI or learning analytics into their research right now. So, happy with it, Christy.
Personally, our lab does. So what I love to say is, like, if you have an idea of emerging technology that you're very interested in pursuing and researching, I can pretty well assure that at least a conversation will happen. All the faculty are interested in how that is moving us forward in both from a research perspective and then also as research tools. So what I can say is that I'm using them as research tools, but I'm not necessarily researching on them in the research work that I do. I am not researching any of the like LLMs, OpenAI, any of that, and I don't touch them at all. So I don't like them. I don't like the idea of them. I don't touch it. Sorry. So I can't really answer that one.
Yeah, my research is not focused on it. The only thing that, again, I'm kind of happy to Rachel, and like Site.ai, I like it's just from a literature review standpoint. It's nice to see, because I'm bad about following the rabbit holes in the paper backwards. It's nice to have a tool like we go also forward and find things that were cited that way. And then like I miss Clippy. And so I feel Grammarly feel close enough to Clippy that I'm okay with like Grammarly checking out. So I don't know how many of them know what Clippy is.
Not sure. Didn't get the last either. Yeah. But I appreciate it. But there is direct research going on in innovative technologies. In our lab, there are different uses of AI and chatbots and learning systems. There's different, I think, Udemy, I'm going to call you out. I think you're doing some research in AI and instructional efforts. So there are many, I see that they are hiding, and I got to. So there really are different people doing exactly that, which is research involving emerging technologies. And so whether it's a tool to aid in your research or whether you're investigating the use of it and how it moves education forward, I think there are many different opportunities to plug in if that's what you want to do. We have the full spectrum, I think. Yeah, the department. Yeah, for sure.
A follow-up question for the faculty in this case. What has been your personal relationship between the research that you conduct and your willingness or unwillingness to engage with AI tools? Things like large language models or things that are a bit more quantitative and empirical.
You or me?
I'm happy to go first. And so I think that I would be like a critically interested in that. I think a lot that seems new is not new. The large language models and machine learning, that's been something that's been around for a while, and have looked at various ways that gets used in open online courses, and seen how data science has used that for like the last 15 years. That's something that I've done some of with a healthy, couple of grains or a pound of salt with that, because I think there's a lot of biases that are just necessarily built in, and just jumping on that emerging tech is a thing bandwagon. We miss a lot of the, what assumptions are not questioned there. So yeah, I think that I'm happy to see, more exploration, but I think you have to be cautious and look at history before you jump into it.
Yeah, and I like to build specifically on that. So, so you see me with all kind of County branding. So County is software for county and managing teams, and in the managing team side, there are peers will write comments to their peers, and so there's a lot of text data there that has potential for analyzing with a large language model. So we started without touching the computer. We started with pulling a whole bunch of cases where there were some funny business happening in teams. And then qualitative researchers looked at the entire record of everything we knew about that team. So the people that were on it, the ratings that they gave each other, the comments that they made about each other, and so forth, and including their performance in the class. And because we knew that these teams had funny business, so we ended up publishing a paper, and the start of the title is Carla grumpy? Because a young man on the team, one of two young men on the team, was just really not comfortable with Carla, a pseudonym, assuming a leadership role on the team, and so his language about her became progressively less happy, let's just say, to using words like grumpy and aggressive and so forth. And so we documented that process of how that all works. And I wanted to participate in that project, particularly because there's a thought of going deeper into AI tools for this system, where I'm trying to do something that AI is not good at, which is like I wanted to find the rarer cases, right? Like those kinds of machine learning tools are really good at finding like the more common patterns, and that's hopeless, right? Because there aren't enough teams with students like that who are being marginalized in that way, right? So like it becomes a progressively difficult problem for machine learning tools, right? So we're trying. I mean, I'm trying to work with people who actually know enough about those details to be able to actually identify the rare cases or rarer cases, right? It's not really rare, but compared to a whole bunch of teams that are full of white guys with hats, they're rarer. So that's where I enter into that. But starting from qualitative research and trying to work my way in a way that doesn't just perpetuate the problems that those things have for especially for people who tend not to fit the mold. So we'll see what happens.
I would close this conversation on a note in the sense that we see AI writing a lot in this space. We know what it looks like. We know how Rachel feels about it. And she reads rapidly. So I don't know, wise, please. But okay, on to another question related to research. This is also effectively directly targeted at Rachel and Christine. What research opportunities are available in engineering education, particularly related to the data analysis of K through 12 STEM learning?
Oh, yeah. Probably in the beginning of research, what I have found is if you are excited about a topic and it relates, and you can generate interest over that with your advisor and teammates in that space, then it can happen. My particular interest is on a tool that's been around for a while, but hadn't been in the forefront of being researched. And I just happened to love everything about it. And so decided that I would do some work in it and asked my advisor if she'd let me kind of work on it on the side for a hot minute. And then it came into a full-fledged project and I'm really enjoying it. And so I would just say what I'm most familiar with is Scale K-12. And we have not only we do our own research from curricular development and pedagogical tools, but we also have relationships with educators, I guess mostly across Indiana. We have some outside of the state, but mostly within Indiana. And then just it creates loads of opportunity for data collection. And so we just have vats of data, both video data and audio recordings and student artifacts and teacher artifacts. And there's so much exciting information in there that hasn't even been touched. And so if you're interested in K-12 research and in this STEM integration way, and you have an idea, bring it to the table. Or if you have a different perspective on something that's already being researched, that will be entertaining as well. I believe you can add to that.
Yeah, I think we have several different faculty working on K-12 research, and it's definitely a variety of areas within it. So I would say, and there's always new grants being applied for, new research projects being started too. So I would say definitely, like, as you're starting to meet with faculty, like, ask around. And if you say like, oh, I want to talk to some faculty that work on K-12, like tell Chennai or whoever is like directing people at that point, and we can give you like, oh, go talk to this person, go talk to that person. But it's definitely, there's a lot in K-12 going on. And yeah, everyone, this dissertation is kind of split out in very different directions because you can do so much with, anything in engineering ed, but there's so many opportunities to research. And I'm working with both teachers in Indiana that I have taught curriculum that I wrote with them. And then I also disseminated a survey to K-12 teachers across the United States. It got 2,300 responses, and I'm analyzing that now too. So there's opportunity to kind of do whatever and that was just like
I happened to work with my advisor. We dug up some funds for some incentives to do the survey, and we went for it, and it went really well. So it was just kind of let's add this on to my dissertation because it's going to be a really helpful component, and we found a way to do it, and we did. I would also add to Rachel's thoughts there, there's research in what we would call formal education, which is in the classroom, and informal education, which is after school, summer camps, anything else. Saying it, yeah, yes. And so again, that those are also options. And whether it's related to how students learn, what students learn, how teachers motivate students to learn, how teachers teach, all of that. There's so many different faculty involved in so many different levels. I feel the world is your oyster. So
I think this question implies that there is a dichotomy between the research done at the K-12 level and the research done at the undergraduate or the graduate level. As a student, and albeit a very experienced student, to me, this dichotomy does feel very significant, especially in the conversations that I have with people and other fellow students within the department. So in a question for the faculty members, is this dichotomy between these two domains of research that significant, or is there more overlap and a bit more relatability between the two that I or somebody else who's experienced would assume?
I mean, the rules change, right? I mean, right, in the United States, pre-college education is required. Then, right, but when you to college education, there's a lot more student agency and choice and diversity of direction, which is not the case necessarily internationally, right? So I think the dichotomy comes partly for that reason, partly for, and you could talk about this, right? The issue of permission to engage in research with people who are younger than 18. Running solely by RB. Yeah, so the permissions are different, the methods are different, the rules are different, the rules of engagement are different.
standards are different.
Standards are different, yeah. There are standards. Yeah, well, okay, fair. Yeah, ABET is operates like a very, very loose level of standards, right? It's supposed to provide an opportunity for innovation. The standards are much more specific in the K-12 space, the pre-college space.
The only thing I would add to that is that there are some sort of theoretical components that do transcend K-12 versus higher ed. Like the pedagogical tool that I'm researching right now has its roots in higher ed and has been, I guess you could say, adapted very influentially to support K-12 STEM integration. And so a lot of the sort of literature that provides the backbone of the research that I'm doing has sort of sound implications at the higher ed level, which gives it a boost when we start talking about implementing it at the K-12 level as we are adapting it for a different audience. But the theoretical underpinnings are very transferable, if that.
Does anybody have any research-specific questions before we move on to another domain?
So I live in a very rural county in Colorado, and it's, I think, the lowest or second lowest funded school district in the state. And I guess I'm curious for both faculty as well as students. How do you see your work as advocating for breaking down barriers and accessing education? Oh, good work.
My specific work is on rural pets, essays, and hiring. Right, so I'm interested. I came from, now our county's small, 25,000 people whole county, so it's a high school.
Yeah, that's
small.
My county too.
Right, so East Central Indiana is a very poor part of the state. Had a lot of manufacturing now that's since closed. So we're kind of still, the fallout from that still not understood. Like my home county closed 2 middle schools. They put all the elementary schools into the middle schools and moved the middle school to the high school. Right, so you can see that input. So I'm interested in, okay, what culturally, what community-wise is influencing students to make that decision for the next level, right? So rural communities support their students, right? So there's a sense of community. But is that sense of community then the limiting factor? Is that potentially a barrier for them, right? Is the idea is that vocational work's okay, but not higher ed, right? So the identity of vocational versus higher ed identity, that's what I'm interested in. So I hope to then find where that decision's made. So then the students like me, right, because I liked engineering, I wanted to do this. How do I reach students that are like me, that rural kid that I grew up, my grandpa was diamond grew up farmer, my dad the body. Right, so I grew up, I could very easily, I thought up to 8th grade, I was going to be body like this like my dad and just work on first. Remember having a conversation, calling a guy, he was interested. I'm like, well, you build it, I'll paint it. So I'm really interested in finding students that like me, finding initially interventions. I don't call them interventions. Like I think every student should be taught to the level they want to. Right, I'm not saying there's good, either pathway is good or bad. I want that intervention of that method, like, hey, there's an option for you. How do I reach them? And then tell them, okay, this is an okay option. Is it nice to know more about that? Me and my wife basically have to stumble through that process ourselves. We've been together since sophomore year, so together we kind of figured it out. But yeah, I'm first generation college student, so like my dad didn't know. So again, it's students like me that's flying. Jennifer, do you want to talk about your work with the homeless population?
Yeah. So if there's and this sort of gets to the question too about if there's this clear line between high school and then you go to university, and that's kind of, there's a lot of assumptions built into that. So my work is with students who are kind of in that what we call a youth space. So I have upper middle school or high school into the up to like 25 years old. But I work with a number of communities, whether in the U.S. or homeless, unaccompanied, experiencing housing insecurity, or have experienced displacement of some kind. So internationally, that includes refugees, people that are having to move around for some sort of reason out of their control. And trying to unpack some of the assumptions about, is it vocational? It's like, what is the role of engineering and what can they learn that will be an immediate livelihood application, but then also perhaps like provide a stepping stone if they want to go on to further studies. And so what our group focuses on is asking those questions, but kind of understanding what does the community have as assets? What are the opportunities in the community? And how can the educational pathways be, built to kind of make that more robust? So for rural students, how could they, if they wanted to stay there, be a part of, continuing to learn there, build there, be the engineers or technical experts for their community? Or, what does that look like if they want to go elsewhere and have to then navigate that pathway of having a credential or some kind of, navigation or beyond.
Yep. Any other questions on the research before we move on? All right. The next category I'd like to ask about that is, I guess, generally student progression and the timeline within the ED program. So I would also be interested in learning about a typical timeline and milestones for PhD students in entering education. How long it usually takes to complete the program and how students are supported in maintaining steady progress. So let's break that down into two questions. The first one is, what is the rough estimate for the timeline? And the second question is, what are the steady progress supports going on there? Anybody who'd like to get that one?
I think the way coming from, I did my master's of politics, so it's like basically there was no set, there's like a few set classes, but the curriculum was kind of, the pipeline is kind of open. I think the way Amy got their first two semesters set up, where you're taking these and like it's setting you up with those building blocks, at least that first year, to then progress. I think the way that's done is really helpful. And I think the support then, the milestones then for that, and then what's the book? The milestones, not the competencies. Yeah, right. And so having a list of pieces of things I need to do before I'm done, and then the part of one of the first 6 classes you take is you set up, okay, these are things I've done already, match these things where I think they get to do and gives you some kind of a timeline of when I want to do them.
And Tina has a support students in the like bullets,
Yes.
Yes. I can help you progress through our milestones. Give emails all the time, procedures, policies. Some of our milestones are readiness, and that's class now. And I can help, guide you through there's questions and answers, Q&A, and a contract. And the next milestone would be like a prelim exam, and that you do have to follow some procedures from the graduate school in Purdue University that is universal throughout all of our programs. And then as you progress towards your dissertation and graduation, there's often a lot of questions there on getting the documentation that you need to that's provided to the graduate school. And in general, if you come in with a bachelor's degree, it may take a little bit longer on the program. If you come in with a master's, it could be as little as a 4-year process to 4, 5, 6 years. And it also depends on your research topic too. In general, we'd like to see people move through the process in the 4 to 5 to 6 year range. However, we have some people that have stayed a little bit longer depending on their program.
Add to, you mentioned the credit, it also depends, like what can your work as an entrepreneurial student, what can your workbook be, right? Like I mentioned, there's a first semester thing, but I did it teaching full time and doing this. I couldn't do the full 9 credits, right? So I had to do 1 here, 2 there, 2 in the next, and kind of mix and match it to make that work, right? I took some of my methods class during the summer, right? They got the fill in points there. So
I think ultimately the timeline is what you would like it to be realistically, with a combination towards what are your real world constraints. For example, I'm a direct from undergrad student. I decided I want to pick up a master's along the way here. To make sure I'm not here for 10 years, I'm really doubling up on the classes I'm taking. I'm working in the summer as well, but not everybody operates in that way. So the timeline is a highly variable and highly personal thing that does adjust dynamically as you are here. So let's say you set the goal for 5 years, it will probably deviate a bit. In some cases, it will stay put, but we don't know. We will not know until you're actually out the door. We did have the conversation mostly about timeline, but I think there's also, we're talking about milestones. In our department, we have, from my understanding, 3 significant ones. Tina alluded to the RDS, which is effectively how I understand it to be, do you know how to read? Can you conduct a literature review effectively? There are some other components there too, but
do you have the toolkit? Yeah.
Do you have the toolkit? And if it's not evident, I have not done the RDS yet.
Because you're busy doing panels.
I'm just so busy to utter bananas. Now, from my understanding, most students are eligible and ready to take the RDS upon completing the first year of curriculum. We see a bulk of our students take the RDS second year and occasionally third year. Then we have the second milestone, which is the preliminary proposal, the prelim, right? And that is you proposing an idea for what your dissertation study is going to be. You're proving to your committee and the advisors around you. This study is worth studying. I've done my research to know that this is the correct way in which I should go about answering it. And the constraints and the resources available to me are realistic to get the study done. And then the third milestone is the dissertation. Following up on that study, executing it, and really understanding what fundamental questions did I just answer here? In the larger body of literature, what did I add? And upon completing those 3 milestones, get your PhD. How quickly you go along with these milestones or how long you stall for, like I said, a highly dependent process. Does anybody have any questions about those milestones or timeline before I move on?
I wanted to add something from a support perspective and kind of tapping into what Kyler was saying. So there is a lot of support for reaching those milestones in your graduation timeline and putting it in your hands. And so Kyler mentioned the 10 competencies in one of your first classes. You will be asked to reflect on these, what it means to you, what you want to accomplish to them, how you're going to demonstrate them through your graduate journey. It's a very personal journey. You're required to show contribution to these 10 competencies, but it's your journey, and you get to decide. There are timelines involved, and you are thinking about those. What you put in them in your document as a first semester student might be different when you follow up with your advisor in the summer for your check-in, your annual check-in. But that document is really in your hands, and you are shaping it that way. I think the other thing is also in that first year class, you're looking at these milestones in the timeline, and in a way, you are setting the blueprint for that plan. So if you have decided that you want to graduate in a year, probably not, but figure out how many classes you can take at one time. If you want 4 years, if it's going to take you 10 years, like you have agency in that. So yeah, maybe there are some typical timelines, and maybe 4 years is standard, or you're getting a master's, or you're working part-time, full-time, commuting, hybrid. So many different ways to fit into the community, and yet you get to make it your own and guide that with whatever feedback you want. And I encourage you to think about what your own timeline is, what you want, and ask for the feedback on how that can fit for you. I think it's a very open and collaborative process. I've sat through it twice.
It's probably important to know, I've met a lot of people since I got my PhD. No one has ever asked me how long it took. No one has ever asked me my GPA. And no one has ever asked me what my dissertation was about, which is probably for the best.
No one's asked about it.
No, I'm not taking your question. Yeah. But we'll take yours though.
Oh yeah, right. I hear about. Milestones, are they assessed by panel, or are they examinations? How do you come to pass the milestone?
So that was my biggest thing. Just coming from Polytech to here, I was really confused. So we call it prelim, we call it, a bunch of stuff. So basically, it boils down to the RES. You need to have your advisor in a commit, like a starting commit, right? So for all 3 milestones, there's basically the size of meeting once they kind of grows. The first one, I think it's 3. Is it 3 faculty?
That's right.
2 others, right, for that first one. And that one is just, again, checking to make sure, hey, are you capable of doing research on your own, right? So that second one, we call it a prelim. It's your proposal defense, right? So that's proposing your first 3 chapters of your dissertation and saying, this is what I want to do. This is my introduction. This is my interview to prove that there's a gap. And then this is my methods for doing that, right? So then that's your committee at that point, it'll be full. They approve that. And then the final milestone will be that the final steps. And that's going to be your full committee as well. And then the competencies are just a list, it's a document that just kind of you can check off whatever. And it's your advisor checking that off. The committee will look at it, but eventually they're not usually faculty. So they might okay, this is interesting, but I really don't want to look at it.
Your committee is something that you put together. Yeah. So you pick a research topic, you have your advisor, and then those other 3 committee members, they're typically faculty. They can be from other universities. Most of the time they're within Purdue's E&E department, but sometimes you pull from other departments or other places, and it's your choice. There are people that have expertise about your research topic, who can help kind of guide your dissertation in the right direction. So people that can help answer your questions, that can give you helpful feedback on your research as you're going through the whole process. So I meet with each of my committee members. I meet with my whole committee as infrequently as I have to, because that's a lot of people in one room. But I meet with each individual committee member once or twice a semester. I meet with them each to go over things, ask questions, make sure that they're still good with everything, get their help on some stuff. At one point, both of my advisors were in other countries. And so I was like, hey, other committee member, can you look over this for me? And he was like, yeah, of course. So they are there to support you and help you, but they are also there to evaluate you and make sure that you're progressing toward your PhD.
Does there need to be a committee member outside of the E&E faculty?
No. So you have to have at least 51% of your committee needs to be Purdue engineering education. And then the other 49% can be elsewhere.
I'm still asking if it's an extra finger is the 1%.
So if you had 100 people on your,
And it's not, never
schedule.
indicate that.
You're like, I follow my that speech.
And in one of, or in my previous program, I had to have at least one faculty member outside of my own.
It's not uncommon because it provides an opportunity both for external perspective, but also like networking, like to connect you to the larger community in that way.
Yeah,
But not required.
But it's not required.
And there's quite a mix of the department. Some people it's all within Purdue E&E. Some people it's like, I just have that 51-ish%. And then the rest are for us. I mean, I have one from another department. I have one at another university. So really.
Follow-up question for the faculty in this case. How many committees do you currently serve on right now? What niche is it that you still on?
Which one? Do I get to go look at my CV?
I'm not on as many right now. I am often the one who is there because there's some facet of like global works. Sending is probably the most common, but not the only. I've had students who are who've taken like independent studies with me, and we do a lot more like into like policy or social context of education because that's like my background and informs a lot of the stuff that I actually study. And so that's also been a role I've played. Like probably the last piece is like a lot of transits and quantitative methods. A lot of our students end up doing qualitative methods, but that is occasionally been where I play.
What's stochastic?
Okay, so I'm a major professor. I think the number is 5 right now. I just gained another one, which is why I had to like think. So I'm co-advising with Kyler. I have they're also a bit scattered, not in terms of their thinking, but their location. So Frank has a full-time job. He's teaching now up in Michigan. So he's making slow progress, but hopefully progress. Hassan had to return to Saudi Arabia when the pandemic happened because well, it's a kingdom and they can do whatever they want. And they said, if you don't come back now, you can't come back for 2 years. And he said, well, I think my wife and child would like me to come back now then. So he went back, but I can't pay him when he's in Saudi Arabia because of tax consequences. So as soon as he moved back to Saudi Arabia, suddenly I couldn't pay him, which meant his father-in-law said, well, you got to get a job then. So he's struggling to make progress on this dissertation just because he's got a full-time job with the Ministry of, actually, at the moment, it's the Ministry of Sport, which is, I think, hysterical. But he's also worked in other ministries. He's incredible at getting amazing jobs. I've just taken on Ray Bonner because his advisor left Purdue for a fantastic job opportunity elsewhere, and he needed a new home, and it was me. And there's Hayam, who works almost entirely remotely because she also has kids, and so that works out well for her. I'm also a committee member for, I don't know how many other folks right now. I'd have to literally go and look at the list, but I can name a few off the top of my head, but I know that there are more. And then I fund 2 who are not my students. Oh, and actually Jackie is also mine, who also is remote because he works full time for Pacific Northwest National Labs. So 6 that are currently mine. But then, yeah, I fund Sage and Laszlo, who are actually in other people's research groups. So
that's your role. But it's a cultist. But it molds, right? You know.
So we cast out 8 minutes left. I could use that time for Matt to describe every single project. That's right now. We'll spare it. I have 2 questions left regarding student life right now. I've only want to ask one, and then we'll have the rest of the time to be open discussion. So the final question is for the students primarily. In an average day, what does it look like? What do you do 9 to 5?
what do you do around here?
I think like what is average is a good question. You know, so my I think I have three buckets. Like I have classes, I have my graduate research assistant work, and I have my research, which is somewhat related to my graduate assistant work, but also somewhat separate. Those are my graduate student, like academic duties. I am a full-time residential student, but I commute in from Indianapolis. So I have every day I come, it's an hour 15 to an hour 20, unless there's an accident. If you were in my class yesterday, you heard about it. The commute becomes a bit longer. So
Jackie, you got caught.
yes, we did. We shared that story. And so on that commute, I have Speechify, which reads me PDF versions of the documents that I have to stay on top of. I use Notebook LLM to turn some of my readings as podcasts so I can listen to them. I've done a lot of different things to make that drive efficient and useful so that it's not dead time for me. And then outside of that, I have a family. I have 3 adult kids and a husband and a dog. And so I have other things that I focus on. That's my day in the life. I like your bucket. I have too many buckets, I think, at the moment. I think primarily you have like your dissertation work, especially maybe not in your first year. So you have kind of your courses, but I work on my dissertation as much as possible because I'd love to graduate. Sounds great. And then I also have my research assistantship. And so those are the 2 primary things that take my time right now. I also have a couple side jobs. So I'm a fellowship writing coach through Purdue. So I help students apply for external fellowships to help them get funding. You want to know more about fellowships, people will probably send you my way anyway. So just come talk to me. There's kind of a variety of other things that you start kind of, I'm also on grad committee and there's little roles here and there that I have. But yeah, for the most part, I am working on my research or the research that pays me. I don't take classes anymore, so I don't have that right now, but that was something that took time as well in the past. And yeah, I don't have kids, which sounds like a lot to have kids during a PhD to me, but I do have 2 dogs that are pretty needy, so, and a husband that's, I guess, needy too, so.
So I'm full-time assistant professor practice, so we're teaching faculty, so we're expected to teach all the courses. So my actual location's Purdue Kokomo. This was an hour down the road on State Road 26. I live in West Lafayette, so Monday, Wednesday, I can meet there. I'm there from 9 to 7, teaching class back. This semester, starting this semester, I'm also Tuesday, Thursday during campus teaching 2 lab sections. So total first 8 weeks the semester, I taught 6 classes, 5 separate classes. And then there'll be 4 different ones in the spring because at Kokomo, we can't offer the same classes both semesters. But I checked off the competency of teaching engineering. Yeah. But besides that, right here, it's really nice about the whole thing, especially when you're statewide, is the flexibility of the scheduling people to make it so I can make it for classes for groups. I think without that flexibility with that, and then basically just shoving my courses around for undergrads, but allowing me to then hop on a Zoom call for 2 hours to then attend hybrid. I did my best to attend in person here as well. So I kind of did the hybrid, the commuter, the residential, kind of everything. Besides that, then it's every Saturday, it's Purdue football videos. That's how I keep myself saying it's Purdue sports. Really excited for basketball since the start.
Yeah.
It's a lot happier than football season. New coach, it'll be
We talked like that. It will never be. All right. So with that being said, we are all out of questions. We only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to pass it over to all of you. Does anybody have any outstanding questions for the panel before we thank them and head out?
What options are there after graduation? Like the main thing is becoming a professor. Job. Yeah, but what else? There's lots more. We have a
Let me over the chief. That's all.
I just want to be a professor. It's a really, if you do want to be a faculty member, this is a great program to be in. If you don't, there are a ton of other options. We actually have a 3-credit course called Alternative Careers for Engineering Education PhDs. And you go through kind of the different sectors and different options you have. Some folks like to go into government.
I wouldn't recommend it right now, but Department of Education is an option. There's informal education routes like museums, where we actually had a graduate go. I think she worked for the Boston Museum of Science and Nationals in Chicago. You can work for like nonprofits or foundations. You can go into industry and do industry research. You can help build education programs for industry. There you can do K-12. You can work in academia but not be a professor. So we have like the Center for Instructional Excellence that helps faculty design courses better. There are a ton of options. So there really are, it's kind of wherever you would like to go, but there are a lot of options, and we have a class to help you figure that out if you're not sure.
And it's tough to keep updated, but if you look online at where our alum folks are, you can see some of that diversity is reflected there.
Any final questions? All right. Well, in that case, everybody, please help me thank the panelists for their time.